A fool first stepped forward, unwary but brave, and met a magician, who whisked him away. There, blessed by a priestess, who feared for his soul, then met by an empress, who taught him his role. Her emperor bid him be steady and true. A hierophant tried to say what he should do, but lovers enticed him to join their game, and soon came a chariot to whisk him away. It took all his strength to endure its swift pace. A hermit ignored him, but lit up his way. Fortune helped guard him, but also brought pain, for justice demanded he work for his gain. A hanging man warned him that waiting can ache, but death's always waiting to take those who stray from temperance's paths to pursue simple pleasures. And though a smooth devil attempted temptation, he'd seen the down tower, destroyed by men's folly. Aligned to a star, he resumed his true journey. Past moonlight, attempting to blind him to dangers, he rode through the night, till the sun rose in welcome. Receiving the judgment that came in conclusion, he'd traveled the world and been changed by the challenge, returning to share his new wisdom and knowledge.
And how do you know that I'm going to fall? I might be transcending to somewhere unknown. Or maybe I just want to walk near the edge. You'll never know nothing if you can't let go. No, I wouldn't say you're afraid or misguided. I'd never say where I go you ought to follow. But please don't insult me as some sort of moron, presuming my rambles will soon lay me low. I'm carefree, not careless, unburdened by care, unheeding of warnings from those who won't dare to charge at horizons and challenge their fears, and then pretend ignorance gives them wise airs. Don't bark at my feet like you're doing me service. Don't laugh at my path like you've been there before. If all those who wandered off never returned, then maybe there's something worth staying for there. My own quicksilver wit doesn't mean it's all tricks. Watch my hands, you might learn how I do it. There's a definite art that can hardly be taught. You must practice the basics to know it. We can shift any stuff to become what we want, or at least what we think will best serve us. All it takes is a wish and a suitable gift, just a token to show that you're earnest. Then a turn of the hand and a word to distract so that doubt doesn't halt what you're doing. With a twist of the wrist and a deft emphasis, et voila, you've become a new being. No, the world doesn't change just because of a wave. What transmutes is the view and magician. For when you can swap who you are, where or what, then the objects before you transition. It's the hardest of arts, yet we've all managed parts, though what happens we don't quite perceive. That most magical gift is to know how it's rigged and still manage to not disbelieve. That's the lesson in full, all the rest lies to you to dissect and refine what I've taught. Though the answer is swift, it takes years to accept, and the rest of your life to perfect. You have my love, you have my blessings, though only the simplest, basic versions, until they are broken, my trust and respect, though if you approach me for greater than that, if you ask appreciation, if you seek my deep affection, these are great treasures that seekers must earn, not privileges given to all undeserved. What is your fame? What is your value? Why should a partner grant blessings to you? If nothing about you engages my interest, why would I deem you desired as asset? What virtue makes you stand apart to lay your claim upon my heart? Said in a word, I am seeking the worthy, standards quite proper for those who would seek me. I don't mean gold. I don't mean power. I never said I was seeking a master. When I assert that I'm seeking true value, you should be certain that statement includes you, for certainty and confidence are first among prerequisites, traits that you gain through confirming your quality, knowing the worth of your inner ability. Is your arm strong? Is your heart stronger? Are you an artist, a builder, a scholar? Surely there's something that grants you distinction. Beasts with no niche are forgot to extinction. And you don't need to be the best, just passionate in your interests. Hold forth just enough to illumine your life, then pause to inquire and share some of mine. What do you say? What is your answer? Have you approached me with something to offer? Though even if supplicants come full of boasting, that won't ensure I'll accept their proposing. Value only gains you a hearing. I decide what's most appealing. And if I say no, don't dispute my decision. Leave and improve, or abandon petition. Here we have the Empress, a ruler raised by marriage, mostly used to reproduce and join royal lineages. Rarely was she given leash to firmly set her empire's course. Some did rule through heritage, a father or a husband's death, but few gained power from conquest, for some say women don't aggress, nor should they stand up and profess a will to rule in dominance. But now some queens upon their thrones do run their nations on their own, or reign supreme in businesses, though none of these are empresses. Perhaps that lapse is for the best, as empire's days are better past. But we could still stand to reverse this notion of women as inferior rulers. Why, they could be as bad or worse, as cruelly capable and perverse, as any man who's crushed his foes and donned a crown and royal robes. That view might trouble feminists who dream of matriarchal bliss, but I would guess, were roles reversed, women could wield iron fists and stifle freedom and dissent, if granted power without limits. I want to be the king of me, the ruler of myself, in charge of all within my halls, unchallenged in control. I want to reign within my brain, its workings by my choice, to orchestrate its every state and tune it to my voice. I'd bring an end to anarchy, this awful lawless hell, where every limb does as they will and fights among themselves. No more my heart would stand apart, a rebel unaligned. I'd crush its beat beneath my feet and bring it back in line. I'd bid no more to hormone storms that waste our body's purpose, and put those brutes to better use, empowering my conquests. For I'd declare myself at war with foreign powers' heads, who seek to claim my body's reign and use it to their ends. But I would cease once they were beat and never more could threaten. I would not helm another's realm nor drive them to destruction. No, I'd be finally satisfied if I were sole in charge of every reed I had to heed, each act my will enlarged. Though even kings don't rule all things which pass within their kingdoms. They bow to gods and fortune's odds in stormy weather's tantrums. Still, I will strive while I am alive to rule what's in my power, to sovereign stand in my own land and be my emperor. Children shouldn't take the lead within their family. They're immature, naive, and lack responsibility. And those whose wisdom's greatest should assume authority. Better still if they show strength to serve their family's needs. But how'd we go from common sense and concepts much like these, to cultures burdened by constraint from ancient patriarchies? Though few kings reign, the leaders' club is still all mostly daddies, from founding fathers, churchmen, and those old boy oligarchies. While once perhaps more muscle mass meant masculinity, to stand up front and take the brunt for expendability, that can explain why elder men well past their fighting years still sit on thrones and clamp down power in such majorities. The old excuse that womenfolk are prone to excitability no longer holds when fairly comparing personal stability. In fact, that whole assumption was an artifact of history, promoted by abuse, misuse, and lack of opportunities. And deeper still, this attitude that only one can lead, that somehow in all circumstance that sole authority has all the answers, all the choice, or else calamities. It's nonsense when we've seen the flaws of prior monarchies. A home is not a castle, and a father's not a king, and even children get a say when choosing how to live. How will children learn to lead if never taught autonomy? And how will they know they can turn to others when in need? And when we look beyond the home to larger worldly bodies, adults should be insulted when compared to infancy by patronizing patriarchs who tell them they're too weak to rule themselves, so give up power to elder daddy dearest. There's lots of noble roles for dads to guide communities, and those who do show skill should be regaled for their abilities. But that's the same for anyone, no matter age or genitals. How about we all grow up and take old Papa off his pedestal? In alchemy, we're union as the joining of the parts, and while that covers romance, simple love is just the start. And imbalanced isolation is what makes conjunction work. We're the source of all attraction that creates all greater worth. A soul complete as single has no means to change or grow. It's when elements are mingled that emergent powers show. So we can mean a friendship, or two partners at a task, or an ally in extremis, someone true to have your back. And we also mean attunement, when you reconcile yourself to the truth of your environment, joining soul and mind to health. Don't forget unequal love, like mortals to a deity. We represent the holy bonds that come from loving piety. To chemists, we're the catalyst, in romance just the start. Our fires must be fed and fanned to grow beyond that spark. Just as in alchemic acts, love's blessing must be earned. There's work to do to forge your pact, to labor and to learn. Next, once you have the union sought, there's work due to maintain it. For like a living thing, a love will die if it's neglected. Yet even love held close and tight can end by act of fate. All mortal lives erode in time, and so may trust and faith. And yet, the products of a love can last beyond its ending. Not all is lost where memory holds, or love produces offspring. And even when no overt trace survives to mark a love, the universe itself is shaped in witness to each bond.
Slow down, swift chariot, there's no rush to carry me home. Slow down, wild chariot, I would rather ramble and roam. I was raised an airman's brat, born on an Air Force base. My childhood was widely spread, my heart not bound to any one place. Traveling kept my rootstock thin, but spread my flowering crown. It wasn't till I was fully grown that any home could tether me down. Slow down, lost chariot, I don't even know where I'm going. Slow down, stalled chariot, your tires are stuck and spinning around. Troubles held my anchor dropped, or else I might still stray, but I still travel in my thoughts, my mind not bound to any one frame. Part of me still holds to hope, if circumstance is kind, to walk abroad before I'm old, and time decays my strength or my mind. Slow down, sweet chariot, I'm not done till I've seen much more. Slow down, swift chariot, there's no rush to carry me home. Why must I constantly widen my emphasis, listing the various versions of strength, as beyond might of muscle or rugged persistence or force of dull will or political numbers, but also resistance and proud perseverance and focus of mind and repeated resilience? My reason arises from constant assumptions that strength is defined as the winner of contests, the grappler who pins or the leader elected, the winner of wars or the assets collected. Less often we point to the people protected, or who, in the long term, is wholly effective. Too often, opposing these past definitions of strength as success in pursuing aggression is treated as sweetening weaknesses lemons by offering excuses for those who prove lesser. But I'm not endorsing a passive demeanor or saying that I'd be content to be second. I'm saying that often the bluster and lather that claims greater power is impotent blather, and flexes that threaten may only be cover, the pretense of strength meant to make us roll over. The truly unyielding don't need to declare it. They simply assert, set their feet, and prepare. For when the wave crashes, for all of its roaring, the stone is still standing, unmoved from its mooring, and even the creatures borne out by its rolling may swim back to shore if they keep from inhaling, and never accept that the enemy's winning, until forced to halt by an absolute ending.
I will not stand in the dark. I have a lantern. I will watch the path I walk. I have a lantern. I see near me, but not farther. I have a lantern. But I will light the way for others. I have a lantern. I have fire held aloft. I have a lantern. But it's small and easily snuffed. I have a lantern. I have light enough to read. I have a lantern. And share words for all to see. I have a lantern. I see others in the night. They have their lanterns. Little points of flickering light. They have their lanterns. I would join them if I might. We have our lanterns. And together we'll burn bright. We have our lanterns. But if not, if I can't go, I have my lantern. I will hold up my small glow. I have a lantern. High and bright so others know. I have a lantern. They're not in this night alone. We all have lanterns.
Come, play our game and take your chance. It's not as if you have a choice. You might as well enjoy the entertainment. You'll always lose what you don't spend, so pay the price and take a spin, and who knows, you might win one happy moment. We're always turning, never stop, not letting any riders off. Well, not until you've reached your destination. But in the meantime, lots to see. Enjoy the varied scenery. You can't complain of lack of stimulation. We're ever turning one direction, but revolve upon an axis, possible to pass a past position. But time's the road we're traveling, a spinning wheel unraveling, you're always paying out with each rotation. You might gain extra spins with labor, but these odds do no one favors. A chance is just a chance and not a contest. If your result is not your preference, sorry friend, no trades or refunds, and you can guess where you can stick your protest. Here's judgment, here's justice, but these aren't the same. For one can pass judgments that aren't just or sane, and we can serve justice without judgment's blame. It's just an assumption that likens their names. It's true that most justice requires decision, and judgment is needed to choose a direction. They do overlap with much juxtaposition, but we must be wary and watch their distinction. For justice is doing what's right for all time, which may not be quite what we'd choose or desire, while judgment requires just picking a side, which might be aligned if our judgment is wise. But just because judgment's been settled and passed is no guarantee that true guilt's been assessed, and victims may never recoup what they've lost. Some judgments can never extract justice's cost. The judgment of gods, we assume, is quite just, with vision for all and the power to enforce. All culprits and judges are held to account. All answer for errors, acknowledged or not. God's justice, we hope, holds a place for compassion, to add understanding to judgment's equation, to serve the best ends, and to see the distinction between honest error and heartless conviction. While we may be lower and bound by our limits, it's worth aspiration to know and to mimic how justice and judgment can be made convergent, and limit the ways that they're often divergent. Suspense isn't fatal, no matter the phrase. It's impact that kills you, or bleeding or pain, or choking or starving, while hung and exposed, while waiting for something that might never show. But hanging alone is no reason for death. You can't die of boredom, no matter the stress, and loneliness aches, but your heart can survive, as long as your mind's set on staying alive. Uncertainty hurts, till your will can start bending, particularly when you don't know when it's ending. The pain comes from wanting what's hung out of reach, some person, some secret, some blissful release. Enduring long waits might mean muting those needs, or adhering to faith that you'll someday succeed. But what if we liked being tied up and lifted? Is there any way to enjoy this suspension? Aside from some kinks, which I'd never try shaming, the next best thing might be to work while we're waiting, but work on ourselves, not make goods for some boss, and employ idle hours, improving our lot. Distraction at worst, but a pastime at least. And you might discover an insight you need, profound inspiration found during suspension that wouldn't have come in a time without tension. Though even if nothing good comes from your striving, it occupies time while you're hung up and dying.
Don't be misled. I sometimes am the death of those I visit. Not every time, but just enough to keep you mortals honest. I'm just the door that's closed and locked, the end of finite things. And yes, I guess if you insist, each end is some beginning. But I'm no wheel to turn and turn, nor hopeful like the lovers, though neither do I devil bind, nor bring a tower's disaster. I'm only doom to victims grim, but welcome to the suffering. There's things that live unwelcome that bring joy upon their ending. It's not my presence you should mind to quail at my arriving. Your only quibbles possibly my targeting or timing. I might be here to clear away some trouble, foul and baneful. Or yes, I might be here for you, but trust me, you'd be grateful.
We've become quite a bit too familiar with temperance as a caricature, an intolerant war on indulgence, a thoughtless crusade against excess. Some offer the humorous suggestion to moderate in moderation, to keep a control on our caution so it doesn't grow too excessive. No doubt there are suitable spaces for victimless vice's indulgence, and places as well for repression, not virtue, just simple suppression. But neither of these are the measure of the temper intended by temperance, nor do we require pure balance,
discarding extremes of dimensions. Instead, a real temper is resultant when metal is matched to conditions, to know where it melts and it hardens, and thus to apply proper forces. One's cooler, another needs hotter. Some want oil while others need water. Poor choices can lead to a shatter, but nothing tried yields nothing better. A life, like a blade, must be hammered, then tested and tried by exposure, restructured by every encounter, from chances and influence chosen. If we want the strongest of tempers, then we need to know our true substance, and choose what exposures and elements will yield the best flex for each person. And yes, there are dangers of excess we all must avoid lest we're damaged, and some certain settings suit all of us, but some steel where others are shattered. So temperance isn't some corset, nor moderate milquetoast commandment, but practices for each to profit by setting their levels and limits. You're wise to be wary. Temptation is strong. When you've found desire, it forges a bond. Those chains become anchors and hold you in place, resisting distractions like duty or pain. A tether to keep you from wandering afar, a fire to warm you and melt your strong heart, a haven deceptive with constancy's comfort, a master refusing to share you with others. It's trouble enough that you're born with some ties, of family, of body, of animal mind. No need to exchange these for more different chains. It's freedom you seek, with no burdens or claims, untethered, unbound, like a leaf on the wind. No home, no commitment, no lovers or friends. What? Love's all temptation, the heart of desire, and nothing binds tighter or burns with such fire. If you'd be unburdened and free to move on, you can't be encumbered with such tawdry bonds. Make do with a vague sort of love for humanity. Let no single person possess you entirely. The same could be said of a place or an art or a concept like justice. You can't trust it all. For putting your trust in some singular hand gives that ruler control, and you don't want that. Stay free and untempted. Stay far from these fires. You can't risk the bondage that comes with desire. The story goes as Babble fell, lang syne and hieing away. But foolproof modern plans fail aye in foolish mortal ways. And best laid plans o' God's, I ken, aft can gang agley. When starns are wrong to follow, man, a'body lead astray. All plans have flaws, as do all towers, as storms may shake and crack. A perfect form were aye required, we'd ne'er form a plan. Though falls can spread us far apart and set our climb aback, that's nae excuse should make us fear to seek what heights we can. The Babble, after Babble crashed, was meant to hold us down, 100 muddled languages to puzzle prideful thoughts. Translation, with compassion, could restore our common ground, but be wary of repeating Babble's possible actual flaw. It needna be a god who pushed to bring the tower down. It mightna have been poorly built, its architecture flawed, but rather ruined by its use by those who rush to climb, and block the stairs and doors and views, provoking splitting fights. We built a modern network, linking every eye and ear. It rises on tall towers, built of plastic, glass, and steel, with meeting halls and translators, both virtual and real. But like that ancient Babel, our vast structure could still fail. Too many seek to use the net to strew yet more confusion, while others want control of it to serve their domination. And those who climb still push and fight to claim the best position. Instead of guiding all to rise, they widen separations. Gin we again repeat mistakes, as shook yon tower doon, this modern wonder will decay until the ground will coop. Though nithin raised is highly safe, we'll try to rise some way. So let's not make this tower a waste by being its destroyer. To steer their lives some look on high, to find a guide with powers divine. Some choose a creed to guide their deeds, based on need and books they read, while some rely on powers of mind and trust their lives to settled science. Still others find their guides inside, mistrusting lies they trust their eyes. And some decline to find a guide,
Spun on tides they wander wide. Then each assumes the other's fools for using tools they wouldn't choose. I can't assess which guide is best. If I confess my life's a mess. I can't rely upon one guide. Each time I've tried, I change my mind. With each new goal I shift my pole, recrossing roads and paying tolls. But I suspect that most I've met have stars ill set and sharp regrets. So I would claim the better way is letting change adjust your aim. For holding true when planets move results in skewed and offset views. Though some refuse to ever choose and say that you must hold one rule. They're arguing the crucial thing is never straying, not deciding. They aren't sure of many stars how one ensures their choice is pure. I'd say rather, facing error makes us better navigators. It's not required to stay one course just because its star rose first. Nor is brightness proof of rightness, stars by dozens dwarf Polaris. And even stellar bodies waver. Some are quasars, others pulsars. The best we'll find, as certain guide, is what's aligned at present time. Staying poised to change our course if signs should show we've lost our north. Or better yet, approximate, triangulate, comparing sets. It seems unfair to go nowhere while being sure you're nearly there. So do not stare into a star. Remain aware. Watch where you are. My light is quite real, though it is a reflection. And some may mistake either source or direction, though if you're confused, that's an error on you. I've been much maligned, but I'm true as the tides. All I'll admit is a bit of deflection. I've never intended to cast an illusion. I split from the earth at our births eons past. We're twins of one flesh, linked together and lashed. You children she's made are my family the same. You all hear my call, although some not so well. No, I'm not a matron of madmen or monsters. The waters and witches and wolves know me best. Some call me inconstant, misled by my phases, but I am unchanging. What shifts is relations. Since I, earth and sun, by great forces were spun, our dancing is constant. It's your view that's altered. I can't even waver my gaze through rotation. Don't blame upon physics your human confusions. Yet still you mistrust me for madness and menses, when I but exist, not controlling your choices. I welcome my lovers, but tire of slander. You could call me goddess, but don't expect largesse. I've already given you all of my powers. What blessings I show are the mirror of yours.
The sun is undefeated, huh? Well, who's been trying to beat it? Avoid it, sure, or block it out, but no one wants it ended. Creatures born to darkest night still need its growth for food, so even if the sunshine hurts, they wouldn't wish its doom. And some, deep in depression's pit, might turn away from light, from envy, pain, or self-disgust, retreating out of sight. But though they may retire a time, unable to enjoy it, the grim and gloom desire light, and wouldn't dare destroy it. No, every single being here, however pale or cold, depends upon our common star, that sacred center soul. It's not a foe to be opposed or eaten by some monster. It doesn't fall or die at night, and winter's just perspective. So when some mourn the sun's lost power and praise it for returning, I laugh and wonder at their fears that fusion might stop burning. Yes, in some age an eon off the sun will fade and end, and maybe will remain to mourn, but nobody will win. It's no defeat to live life long and die when it's completed. The sun will burn out unopposed and perish undefeated. Prejudice is judgment in the absence of much knowledge, and usually it's guilty, finding fault in those despised. Too rarely do we talk about too soon presuming innocence, the prejudice that blinds us to the faults of those we like. We may distrust another, whether overt or subconscious, for traits we correlate with misbehavior or ill faith, the culture that they hail from or their group associations, their choice of word or dress or love or color of their face. But when we judge the opposite and think a person harmless, we often rush decisions based on factors much the same, most commonly when face or speech or culture matches ours, but sometimes traits we don't share cause our positive mistakes. We might assume a stranger smart or strong or well-behaved, from wrong ideas of how these traits are carried in transmission, like, girls just want to get along, or Asians all know math, which praise is just as foolish as ungrounded crimination. The same applies to linking traits and specious correlations, such as beauty equals goodness or the old are always wise. There might be times we need employ such simple, quick assumptions, but thought reveals exceptions showing how these instincts lie. The worst to me are prejudices which absolve true villains, based on false presumptions that they could not be at fault, thinking that some job or faith or talent screens for weakness, so those who found success are better people overall. Its fools consider status as the measure of a man, mistaking it for virtue which quite often isn't so. They think that wealth must prove its holder right and smart and strong, and treat the rich like heroes, overlooking many flaws. Yet even when we're well aware and trying to avert, it's hard to block our prejudices toward praise and trust. We want to find the worthy, to discover someone great, and holding back regard can seem like baseless disrespect. But in the end, an unearned past can cause its own destruction when those we laud unjustly break apart as mortal clay. Guard your judgments toward merit just like your suspicions. Otherwise, don't be surprised when your praise is betrayed. Is your world the same as it was yesterday? While true in some ways, in others it's changed. Where will you be when you've weathered a week, a month, 2 or 3, or perhaps in a year? You might try to hold, but the world will still turn. You're carried along as a passenger borne. A person or world rarely changes at once, a little each turn, but those changes add up. With time and life's pull, all eventually moves. No single point holds. What won't crumble must grow. While you might presume an invariant view, some center to know, some secure word to quote, the world won't be bound. It throws absolutes down and turns certainty round with no bastions allowed. And those who pretend that their world will not end up soon enough dead when the world's done with them. So if you have love, hold it close, for it's gone, and if you're now stuck, you will one day move on. Just one thing is sure, till the universe cools, the world will still turn.